A couple weeks ago, I posted here on this channel a video talking about the problems that Creality Print 5 has brought from the Creality Print 4, actually. Creality Print 5, it's a software, it's a slicer for 3D printing based on the Orca slicer that it's actually based on Bamboo Lab. And Creality tried to create a new slicer, especially because they are about to launch the new printer with the multicolor capacity. And then I've made that video talking about the bunch of problems, issues, and bugs that Creality Print 5 had at that time. And in this meantime, I have been using the Creality Print 5, and they updated that. So now their latest version is the Creality Print 5.1. And I don't think it's fair to produce videos only to talk about the bad things related to a product or a software or anything. So even because I know that talking about the bad things usually bring more traffic to the channel, but I believe on being fair about what the companies are doing to improve their products and trying to make better things to provide to you that use their products. So today I would like to talk to you about what Creality Print 5.1 did to improve the problems, the issues, the bugs, and some new features they have put on that software. So, okay, the studio is turned on, so let's start talking about Creality Print 5. Let's invent. Welcome, inventors! Let's talk about Creality Print 5.1. A couple weeks ago, I made a video here on the channel talking about the huge problems that Creality Print 5.0 created, not only brought from the Creality Print 4, but they created new bugs over the core of Orca Slicer. So today is the day to be fair with Creality and talk about the fixes and some improvements that Creality put on Creality Print 5.1. So keep tuned and let's start talking about the problems that we still have on Creality Print 5.1. So let's start talking about the feature that Orca Slicer brought into the 3D printing jobs. That is the option you have to print the object sequence instead the layer sequence. So you have the option to print many pieces at the same time using the priority of the object instead a layer. So using this mode can improve the strength of your piece and can make your printing job even faster because you can print one piece at the time instead printing all the pieces at the same time, printing each layer. So this mode, it's very, very useful, especially for you that develop or you sell parts that need to be very, very strong. And on Orca Slicer, you can select this mode and then you can select the sequence of the objects you have on your bed. So then you can print the smaller pieces first and avoid the kind of area conflict, avoiding the head to heat the piece that have been already printed and things like that. So on Creality Print 5.1, you have a problem. The software is not respecting the sequence of the parts, and then depending on the parts you are trying to print, the software will keep warning you all the time that the piece will cause a kind of accident if you try to print that, and the software doesn't allow you to slice the piece and send to the printer. Another bug here is related to the adaptive layers. So the adaptive layers, it's a mode where you can tell the slicer to variate the height of each layer, making organic parts more smooth, and then avoiding that kind of less layer that you can see, especially on the head of action figures and things like that. That layer that you can see clearly that this is a layer of 3D printing from an FDM printer. So everyone that already used that knows that the adaptive layers is not compatible with organic supports, like the 3 supports. And this is normal. Orca has this limitation, and this is related to the algorithm, especially the organic support that does not support adaptive layers. So, but on Creality Print 5.1, we have a problem here when we are trying to do that, because they has this limitation. They doesn't allow you to slice the part, but the software does not warn you with the right message. They just disable the slice button, and it simply hide the notification, so you don't know what is wrong with your slicing job, and you don't know what to do to fix that and go ahead. So pay attention to that. If you are trying to use adaptive layers with organic support, it's not compatible, and Creality Print 5.1 does not tell you that, okay? So another big issue, it's not actually a bug, but it's like in a Creality lazy manifestation about their software, is that they still have no profiles for all the Creality printers inside the Creality Print software. And even the profiles that they already put on that, like K1, K1 Max, and K1C, you don't have the profile for different size of nose. Like you only have the 0.4 millimeters. So you don't have the 0.2, 0.6, 0.8, something that Orca Slicer already have. So why Creality don't simply get this profile and incorporate inside the Creality Print? I don't know. I have no idea why they don't save jobs, save time, and just use those profiles. And when I try to export those profiles from Orca Slicer and import into Creality Print 5.1, I had another problem, because 0.6 came okay, 0.8 import as a 0.6. And then when I try to rename that or try to create a copy, trying to make or force the Creality Print slicer to understand that I'm trying to save a 0.8 millimeters profile, Creality Print slicer simply don't care about that. I try to rename, I try to duplicate, and it's still saving that profile, thinking that the nose size is 0.6. So beyond the fact that they are not publishing profiles for different noses and different printers, the software is difficulting the job of importing from other software. So this is a bug that must be fixed as soon as possible. So another function that Creality Print 5 just hide from the object menu, when you right click on object, you have a couple functions there. So this is the object menu. On Orca Slicer, you have a very specific function that is very, very useful for who is designing his own parts. That is the update from disk. For people that just use models from other creators or downloading and things like that, that function doesn't make sense. But for people like me that design your own parts and you try to calibrate and test the parts on Slicer, especially to make sure the dimensions are correct and things like that, that function is very, very useful, because you don't have to remove the part from the bed, and you don't have to apply all the custom configurations again to the new part when you try to import that. Just right click on the object and update from disk, and the part it's updated with all the configurations there, so you don't have to to re-input all the configurations again. So this is a very, very useful function, and Creality just remove that from the object menu. So Creality, please put that back. It's very, very useful, and it's a rated function. So just use what Orca has. So don't hide functionalities, please. So even having some issues or bugs that Creality should fix, this version of Creality Print came with some good improvements, like actually are awesome improvements. I loved the new calibration menu. Right now, in the day where I'm creating this video, the Creality Print 5.1, it's the most complete slicer considering the calibration options inside the software. So this is amazing because they came from a very buggy software version, and then they fix the most important bugs, especially the bugs related to the filament profiles and that mess they were doing with your custom filaments profiles and other bugs that I mentioned on the previous video. But they improve creating a lot of different calibration functions and features inside the software. But as always, it's not perfect, because even on the old features like temperature tower, flow rate, max flow rate, and other basic calibration functions, Creality just didn't update the tutorial. So you have the functions there, you have differences between Cura version and the Orca version. I'm talking about the Creality Print 4 and Creality Print 5, and they are not actually the same. They are not perfectly the same features. So you have differences, especially when we talk about the flow rate calibration and the max flow rate calibration. That are differences in the way you calculate those tests and those calibration between Cura core and Orca slicer core. So Creality just updated that, and they didn't update the tutorial. So the Creality's tutorial about calibration, it's wrong. They have a lot of wrong information about the calibration of flow rate and max flow rate, okay? So even having this kind of problems, they implement new functionalities, and that is awesome because, as I said, this is the most complete calibration menu between all the slicers you can find on the market, at least for now. So let's see some of these features. Come on. So right at the top, where you have the Creality icon on the left side of your slicer, you can click there and then enter on the calibration menu. Inside that menu, you have the default calibration you already had on the 5.0 and even on the Creality Print 4, like temperature tower, flow rate, pressure advance, max flow rate, VFA, and some others very basic calibration features. But on 5.1, you have some new features, some new tests to calibrate your printer. And from that perspective, you have the retraction tests with 2 different tests for retraction. You have the speed test, the acceleration test, and the arc feeding test. So for me, the most important menu you can find here is the speed menu. The speed menu, you can have the max speed test, the speed tower, the jitter speed, and the fun speed, where you can calibrate special materials and make sure that the cooling process or the cooling calibration of that special filament, it's right calibrated in that printer. So you can print and then you can figure out what is the best cooling speed for that kind of material printing on K1, K1 Max, K1C, and even in the future, I hope Creality import the other profiles from other Creality printers inside. So even if you don't have the right profile for your printer inside the Creality Print 5 right now, you can take those profiles from Orca Slicer and import into Creality Print. Even having that problem with the name and the nozzle size and things like that, you can do that to put all your printer profiles inside one software. And that is a good option because the difference between the Orca Slicer and Creality Print 5, it's basically the fact that inside Creality Print you can manage your printer directly from the software, like sending the print directly after slicing your part without having to export the G-code and import into the web interface of your Creality Print. You can see all your printers inside the device list. That is actually another improvement. On Creality Print 5, that list had a problem updating, especially when you start the day and turn on your printers for the first time in the day. You have to click on Add Device, refresh, and then update the list. Right now, what I can see during all the days I'm testing the Creality Print 5.1, I can see that that list is updating automatically, and this is awesome because it was so irritating having to click on Add button, refresh, and update that all the time, especially when I'm starting my day on my farm jobs, okay? So on Orca, you have basically all the options for the slicer functions that you have inside the Creality Print 5, but having the possibility to operate the printer directly from the software, it's better, and you have just one function that you will not have an alternative outside of Creality Print 5, that is sending your G-code with instructions for running calibration right before the print. So this is the difference between the calibration you run directly on the printer and sending the calibration flag. When you run the calibration directly on the printer, you have a lower bed temperature on that default or standard calibration and auto leveling on the bed. So usually that temperature stays about 50 degrees Celsius. But when you are printing different materials like PETG and ABS, or even other materials like nylon that needs a higher temperature on the bed, if you run the calibration and then the auto leveling using the default temperature, the auto leveling process will leveling the bed based on a different temperature, and the deformation of the bed will be different. Then when you send the print using a higher temperature, the bed will deformate differently and you will have a big problem on your first layer. So flagging the print calibration directly from the slicer when you send the print to your K1, K1 Max, and K1C, that calibration and that auto leveling will run using the filament temperature you have on your G-code. So if you are sending an ABS, they will calibrate that using 100 degrees Celsius on the bed. If you're sending PETG, they will do that, heating the bed up to 70 degrees Celsius. So you will avoid a lot of problems with bed leveling during this process. So I recommend, if you are using Creality printers, I recommend use the Creality Print 5.1 because right now the software is at least usable and the software is finally stable to use on your daily basis uses. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to do not lose the next videos I will bring into this channel. And my message to Creality is keep doing a good job and improving your software and your hardware, because I prefer to bring good news in this channel. So keep doing a good job, keep improving that, and I hope the next video to be a good news as this was, okay? So keep tuning on the channel and I see you on the next video, and let's keep inventing.